All right, in this video I wanted to go over the conversions and some of the different conversion factors we'll be using in physics, and specifically talk about how to convert using dimensional analysis. And sometimes this can be kind of tedious, and it seems kind of redundant after a while, especially when you get to understand the metric system a little bit better. But it is good practice for other things, especially when you have two-part conversions like we'll have with this one. But using the metric system is really nice and easy because everything's powers of 10, and once you understand where things are located and what the factor differences are, you should just be able to count decimal places and move that in order to figure out what the answer is going to be. But when we get to a little bit harder conversions, and especially when we get to the British system, and we got to convert inches to meters or miles per hour to meters per second, you're not going to be able to do those in your head. So it's real helpful to be able to use one type of method for all conversions. Okay, first of all, let's look at the metric system real quick. This can get kind of tricky for the first time someone's seeing this, especially when we start seeing these 10 to the third, 10 to the second, 10 to the first, and so on and so forth. Okay, with the metric system, you always have your base unit of measurement. Okay, so if we're measuring a length, we have a meter. If you're measuring volume, you got a liter. Measure mass, we start off with the gram. Can be any other SI system of measurement as well. So we can use these units. We get into electrostatics, and we're going to be measuring things in coulombs. Okay, so we need our base measurement or base unit to start off with. Anytime we add any of these prefixes, we're going to be moving the decimal to that base unit. Okay, so if we have a kilometer, okay, so we add the kilo in front of the meter, okay, notice that it has this 10 to the third. And sometimes people will get it backwards on what it actually means. And 10 to the third, 1 times 10 to the third is 1,000. And all this is saying is that in 1 kilometer, there are 1 times 10 to the third meters. Okay, so you got to make sure that these are that there's 1,000 meters in a kilometer, or 1,000 meters in a kilometer. There's 100 meters in a hectometer. There's 10 liters in a deciliter. Okay, now you get down underneath of this, and now the scientific notation is going to be 10 to the minus. Okay, and you continue out with the same thing. The centimeter, obviously, there's 100 centimeters in a meter. This says 10 to the minus 2, or you can state it as there's 1 times 10 to the minus second meters in 1 centimeter, which seems kind of backwards in the way that you think about this. But sometimes it's easier to look at the smaller prefix or the smaller scientific notation and to be able to say that there's 100 of these in 1 meter instead. But anyway, that's beside the point of this. Using these particular using this particular scientific notation, let's do a couple of conversions here using the metric system, and then jump down to the British system and kind of talk a little bit about how we're going to set this up. And like I said, the big thing here is that it's all consistent. Okay, we're doing the same thing. No matter what conversion it is, we're always going to end up doing the same thing. Okay, so let's convert 500 milligrams to grams. All right, so the first thing I want to do, I'm going to put 500 milligrams, and I'm going to set up my conversion factor here. Okay, and this is really an important step. Okay, put your box down and put your conversion factor in. And the next step is, since the milligrams, this is the same thing as saying 500 milligrams over 1. So we want to put milligrams on the bottom so that this ends up canceling out, and we're going to put grams on the top. Okay. So if we go down here to milli, we're going to see that there's 10 to the minus third. Okay, so when we set this up, we want to say that there's 10 to the minus third grams in 1 milligram. Okay, so that's pretty simple. So 500 times 1 times 10 to the minus third is going to equal 0.5. So all we have to do is move the decimal 3 times 5. So it's 0.5 grams. Okay, so that's pretty simple. Let's do one that's a step harder here. this time we're going from hecto to milli. Now, like I said, this is something that as you get better at this, you're going to be able to notice this. But hecto is 10 times 10 to the second. Milli is to the negative third. The difference is to the fifth. Okay, the difference between 2 and negative 3 is 5. Okay, so we're going to be moving the decimal 5 places. Okay, now which way you have to go depends on whether it's a smaller unit to a larger or vice versa. So let's go ahead and set this up just to show how this works. Okay, so 0 on the right down here, then I have 0.35 hectometers. Okay, and let's go ahead and convert this to meters. So I'm going to put hecto on the bottom, meters on the top. Okay, so if we notice there's 10 to the second meter in 1 hectometer. Okay, now I need to make another conversion factor. Let's go ahead and get rid of that hecto there and move that out of the way. But right now we're left with meters. Well, now we got to go from meters to millimeters. So now I want to cancel the meters out, and I want to put millimeters here. And if I jump down here, just like I did on the board up here, and notice that there's 10 to the negative third gram and 1 milligram. There's 10 to the negative third meters and 1 millimeter. Okay, so I'm going to take 0.35 multiplied by 1 times 10 to the second and divided by 1 times 10 to the minus third. Okay, so what's going to happen is I'm going to end up moving my decimal 5 places to the right when it's all said and done. Excuse me. So this is going to give me 35,000 millimeters. Okay? So those are pretty simple. You just got to continue setting your conversion factors, and it only takes once to plug it into your calculator. You plug it in all in at once. All right, let's talk about the British system here real quick. These are a little bit more challenging in a certain aspect just because it's not all multiples of 10. It'd be easier if we just stuck with the British system on everything, but that's not going to happen for a long time. So anyway, you're going to have to know all your different conversion factors. And the easiest way to do this, just go online and be able to find out how many inches are in a centimeter and so on and so forth. Okay, that's pretty simple. But if we're going to set up all of these conversions just like we did up here, but we just need to know what the conversion factors are. So let's go ahead and set this up. 150 inches. And I want to take that directly to meters. Well, right off the top of my head, and like I said, I'm not looking up anything right now. I'm not exactly sure how many inches are in a meter, but I know that I can convert inches to feet. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in inches here and feet here. So I know that I'm set. I know that in 1 foot there are 12 inches. Okay, so that's going to cancel that. And once again, I've used this number enough to know there are 3.2808 feet a meter. So I'm going to put feet on the bottom now so that it cancels, and meter on top. And it's 3.2808 feet a meter. Okay, so now it's just a pretty simple conversion. So now I got 150 divided by 12, and then divided by 3.2808, and I'm going to get 3.8 meters. Especially when you're doing metric conversions, it's really easy. But when you're doing British system conversions, you got to make sure you check your sig figs when you're done. Okay? Because 150 inches, we only have 2 significant figures here. I know I've got several sig figs in my conversion factor here. But remember, when you're multiplying and dividing, you want to pick the number that has the least significant figures on all of them that you're using. And that is the one that's going to dictate the number of sig figs when you're multiplying and dividing. When you're adding and subtracting, it's a little bit more challenging. But multiplication division is pretty easy. Okay, let's do one more here real quick. 40 miles per hour to meters per second. Now, these conversions take an extra step usually. The other thing that you got to pay attention to is that you have one unit over another. So you have to really pay attention to which side that you put the unit that you're canceling on, whether it's the top or the bottom. Okay, you got to really pay attention to that. The other thing is make sure you stick to one unit at a time. Do however many conversion factors you need to get from miles to meters, and then however many you need to do for hours to seconds. It may take you 1, it may take you 3 or 4 of them. Okay, you may have a really long list of conversion factors that you have to multiply and divide. That's fine.
It all works out in the end. Okay, so let's go ahead and set this one up. 40 miles per hour. And I know we get in a hurry and we'll write miles and then we'll write it like this. We'll say miles per hour. And when I'm setting up conversion factors, I don't necessarily like to do this because it's, once again, it's easy to make a mistake on whether it needs to be on the top or the bottom. So I try to write my units directly one over the other so that makes it simple. So let's convert the miles to meters to start off with. Okay, so I'm going to put miles, since it's on the top, I'm going to put it down below, and I'm going to put meters there. Now, once again, you can look this up, but until you understand most of these or memorize them or whatever, sometimes it's kind of hard to find them, but just go on Google or some other site and you'll be able to find the conversion factors. There's 1,609 meters in 1 mile. Okay, now I've got miles canceled out. And notice I've got meters left on top, which is where I want it. Now we're going to convert from hours to seconds. Okay, since hours is on the bottom, I want to put it here. Okay, so that I cancel out the hours. And notice I'm left with seconds on the bottom. And there are 3,600 seconds in 1 hour. Okay, so now I'm going to take 40 times 1,609 divided by 3,600. That's going to give me 18 meters per second. So that gives you just a simple idea on how to set up any conversions between metric system or between British and metric using dimensional analysis. The only other conversion that I can think of off the top of my head that may pose a problem is when something is square or cube, and you have to end up converting those. And the big thing, I'm not going to go into detail on that in this video, but the big thing that I just want to make sure you understand is that if something is cubed, if you're converting 1,000 centimeters cubed to meter cubed, you're going to have to convert 3 different times, okay? So it's not just that there's 10 to the minus second meters in a centimeter, it's 10 to the minus second, 10 to the minus second, and 10 to the minus second again. So you have to do that conversion 3 times in order to make that happen, because you have to convert each one of those cube measures. Okay, that ends this video.